Hello friends, welcome to the platform that is Stuff Station 1, your only platform to see the best gear reviews from my collection.
Right guys, so as you can see in the actual watch box at present, I've got a red G-Shock on the left hand side. In the middle, I've got a watch by an American firm called Tokyo Bay, and that's quite a retro piece. It's a jumping hour. A wristwatch there, and then the one on the right hand side is a Seiko 5 sports divers model. And over the coming weeks I'll be doing a review of these timepieces, and as the collection grows I will be sharing more information, more imagery and details about the actual growing state of the watch collection. Right guys, so here's the actual watch itself. Now this is the Seiko 5 Sports SKZ 247K1. Sometimes the actual designation ends with a J1, and the J1 denoting that the actual watch was cased and assembled in Japan. Now this particular one I believe was actually cased in Thailand. Now Seiko has its manufacturing all around Southeast Asia. So at the time when I was doing my research, and this is going back to around 2007, 2008, there was a premium to pay for the Japanese version, because obviously Japanese approach to manufacturing and quality control is really sort of up there along with the Swiss manufacturers. But at the time, I was on a budget and I didn't really want to pay that additional premium. In hindsight, I wish I did, just so that I had that premium option. And if you look very carefully, you can't quite make it out, but just there, you will actually have the reference number along with a J1 or a K1. And in my case, it's a K1. So the actual piece itself, it's a Seiko 5 Sports. It's a diver's model. It's rated to about 200 meters in depth rating for diving. I've got to be honest with you, I'm not a diver, but at the time when I acquired this piece, I was really into, and I suppose I still am, into the whole big sort of oversized watch style, and on that front it really didn't disappoint. The other reason why I got it because it was a Seiko. I wanted to add a Seiko to my collection, and Seiko is really renowned for their in-house manufacturing. Apart from the Swiss, the Seiko, the Japanese brand, still manufactures everything in-house. So you can call the movement inside here an in-house movement. They don't buy movements from the likes of ITA or Sellita or any of these other Swiss or other Japanese movement manufacturers. Okay, so I got it as well because, my family have had a long tradition of wearing Seikos, and in particular Seiko 5. So I just thought I'd carry on that tradition. And, the Seiko 5 range has really been in production for an awful long time, and they don't just do these sports models, they do quite dressy models as well. So in this case, the actual 5 is or the version that I have here is actually classed as a sports diver's model. Now, a few things to actually sort of note about the watch itself. The case itself is very bold, as you can see. It's stainless steel. It has a black PVD finish. And I've got to say, the PVD finish, the coating on here, it's one of the best. Now you can see there are lots of sort of dings and scratches on there, and that's only normal for a watch of this age. But why I like this particular PVD, and I've had other PVD watches before, is the sort of almost quite smooth textured nature of the actual coating. Now, in some cases, the PVD almost feels like a very sort of, not really rough, but a matte sort of a rough texture. And I just like this one because it was actually quite smooth, and I felt that they actually did this quite nicely. You can actually see there is a rubber shroud that goes all the way around the actual watch itself. And I like that because it adds this other layer of protection around the watch. You can actually see there we've got some hex screws, okay, that sort of keep the case in sort of position and sort of really held in, and I really like that. Now the tradition is for Seikos to actually have nicknames, and I believe that this particular model is called the Frankenmonster, and it's called Frankenmonster because of these sort of lugs, if you like, that sort of stick out, well, the actual hex bolts, and they are sort of reminiscent of Frankenstein, and in his neck he has those bolts that sort of stick out of there. So this was dubbed the actual Frankenmonster. Now the bezel itself, okay, it's unidirectional, so it will only spin round in an anti-clockwise fashion. I do find the bezel movement quite tight. You've got to really apply pressure to it, but in some ways I suppose that's good. It's not going to get knocked out of position if you are actually going to go diving. All right, and also I think the bezel here, it could have been a little bit higher. You can't quite get your hand and fingers around it because of the shroud there. Okay, you can just see there my fingers only sort of barely making contact with it. But one thing they have done, they've actually knurled it here. So you've got this sort of texturizing there, so you can sort of grab it. I mean, if you were to take this diving and you were to wear like a diver's suit with you know, gloves on, I think you'd find it impossible to actually sort of turn it round. But, you know, hey-ho. Now, the bezel itself, it's graduated, okay, and it's filled with sort of paint infilling here. There's no loom on that. There is a little loom on the pip just there, and that is or does get quite bright. The other thing that I like about it is that it's actually a really legible. The dial is extremely legible. You can see the hour markers there, and then on the outside of the hour markers, you've got the graduated minute markers there. There's a day and also a date window there as well, and it's extremely legible, and even from a distance it's quite nice, and you can actually view the time really well. And at times when I'm traveling, I often take this watch because I like to just leave it on the side of the you know, bedside stand, and I can just read the time really well. The bracelet I really like, okay? It's got this textured sort of knurled pattern here, all right? And that just sort of breaks the watch down, and it carries on with that knurling that you see there. They are solid links, okay? So that's a nice touch. And they are held in place by friction pins. Now, friction pins I don't really like so much because you've got to sort of hammer them in and sort of hammer them out when you want to resize it. Okay, so it could have been a little bit more a nicer system there, but I suppose they were trying to do this at a budget. And you know, I paid, what was it, something like $170 for this, so I suppose they couldn't go that far with the actual manufacturing itself. The actual bracelet, if we have a look at the clasp there, we can see that it locks into position, and then you've got another set of pushers that you've got to push, and then it opens up to actually reveal the whole bracelet there. There is a diver's extension, so you can actually move these a few notches, all right, if you want to wear it with your diving suit, okay, or if you just generally wanted to resize it up if your wrists did become a bit bigger. If we have a look on the back itself, there is some engraving there to the actual piece. It's got Seiko stamped on there, and it's got their sort of traditional wave motif that's there in relief there on the back. Now the movement itself, it's known as the 7S36 movement, okay, and it is very, very robust, okay. Literally, I will pick this thing up, and it is an automatic movement. You just give it a few shakes, put it on, and you're good to go. I've never serviced this watch. it just beats, and it tells really a good time as well at the same time. And that's one thing that Seiko is really renowned for, the accuracy and really the longevity of their actual movements. And that's what I love about this watch. And you know, it just has a real wrist presence. Now I'm wearing it on my right. I am a righty. So you can see there, I think the actual case dimension, I believe it's around 44 millimeters. It does actually stand sort of quite proud there, you can see, but it just looks really nice if you're going for that casual look. You can't really wear this with anything dressy because, as you can see there, it is quite a big hefty piece. But I love the little details. You can see there on the crown you've got the insignia, the Seiko 5 insignia there, little touches with these crosshead screws, and just the overall look of it. One other little gripe that I do have, I've not really had any issues with it, but whenever you do open the crown out, okay, you pull it out, there is a little bit of play there on that crown. Now, nothing's ever happened, and I'm sure that sort of is within Seiko's tolerance. But again, you know, I've had other watches in my hand and there will not be that level of play. But, you know, I've had this watch for, 10 years now, and it's never really caused me sort of any issue. So I'm sure it is probably okay. But that's probably one niggling thing that I have in the back of my head that, you know, will the crown sort of go one day? But of the reviews that I've read, no one has really sort of commented that their crown has gone. So that's the review of the Seiko 5. I hope you've enjoyed the review. If you're thinking about acquiring a Seiko, I would say absolutely just go for it. Okay, they are fantastic watches, and they're a really good platform to get you onto the whole automatic movement manufacture of watches, and it's a nice sort of stepping stone as well if you want to then take the step up, as I'm hoping to move into sort of high horology and in the world of Swiss watches as well. So I hope you've enjoyed the review, and please do stay tuned for the future midweek reviews that will be coming up.
Now remember, friends, I am not endorsed in any way by any of the companies featured here. I purely do this for a love of product design. If you've enjoyed the video, please leave a comment, please hit like, please subscribe for more future cool videos.